First things first, how are you?
I'm great, man. Busy, but you know.
Well, thank you for taking the time then.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Let's jump straight into it, because what I find very interesting, the way you came up in music. I mean, you got introduced to soul and all kinds of music by your parents. Then you played in all kinds of different bands, from rock to metal even, and everything. When did you start to find your own voice?
I feel like I'm still finding it. You know, I feel like it's an everlasting search that just continue to happen. I feel like the second that you know that you're there, or you found it, or you're perfect, there's nothing. You're not a student to life anymore, right? Or a student to the craft. And I hope that I'm continuously, forever finding my voice and finding something that is, because I listen to things that I did even 2 years ago, and it's just like, I don't feel like that person at all anymore. My voice is like that at all. You know, it's like, the growth just continues to happen. So I'm just, it's quite nuts to have to like sing songs too that you're like about an ex-girlfriend that you're just not in that feeling anymore. But thank God they pay the bills. But also, you got to get back to that mindset every night, which is tough, because I'm like, I'm not still thinking about her. I've moved on, you know.
But there will be people who remind you of that feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just beautiful, man. I couldn't be happier.
That's great to hear. So what I find interesting then about your development, did you really work at your craft in a sense, in terms of, because I know you played gigs everywhere, like weddings and everything. So what was that grind like?
Every day, just every day. I needed to be in a studio. I needed to be singing somewhere. I just can't stop singing. I can't stop running my mouth, for that matter, man. Even days where it's like, take a day off, it's just, I love to communicate, you know. There's ways to communicate. I get so lucky to be able to sing, to communicate feelings. So I think just every day, and I'm very fortunate to have people with me that were my best friends from school that wanted the same drive and had the same drive to help me through it and get through it, because I was doing everything I could to be heard by anyone in any facet. I always like to think of myself as if I wasn't going to be the best in this genre, I just want to be the second best at everything. You know, that's it. If I can go out as the second best at everything ever, then I'll be fine with that. I'll be silver. You know, and it's totally fine.
Did you have somebody in mind who was the number one? Did you have somebody you kind of worked with?
Man, I think Michael Jackson was the biggest pop icon, the biggest icon in the world. You know, It's no one got more famous than that. And strangely enough, Michael Jordan for me I run my life off of. I want to be Michael Jordan of anything, for that matter. You know, he's really that and. Lil Wayne, I think, is the sole reason I even started tattooing my face and got my eyelids tattooed, because I think the first thing that really made me want to do music is when I was in 9th grade and the Carter 3 came out. And that was just like, even though I'm singing and not rapping, but the Carter 3 is just, just never get that famous as he was in 2008. Like, he was so famous.
Sure. Well, that's an interesting thing, because now that you have had some success and you're tasting that fame in a sense, I mean, I don't know how much you get recognized, but is it like you expected it to be kind of in the public eye?
You know, it is, and I love every second of it. You know, there are definitely those times where, and I'm doing it on a small scale. You know, I might get seen or noticed 2 or 3 times in an airport or something, and sometimes I feel like people will notice me because they'll give me a look, but I also don't know sometimes if they notice I'm Teddy Swims or just because I'm fucking crazy looking, you know, or if they're just like noticing me like, that guy's been through some shit, you know, or if they know I'm Teddy Swims. So it's kind of, I will always say that there's those times where it's like 6 a.m. in the airport, or, you're just getting off the bus after a long night on a ferry and you're coming in, and if there's, I always like make sure I promise myself, if there ever is anyone that ever stops and says, hi, I love you, I love your music, that you turn around and you put the face on, no matter how shitty you feel or tired you are, because I feel like if you are signing up to do this job and you don't have that time in your day to do it, you just like, maybe you shouldn't be doing this job. You should really, it's about giving back to the people that are put me in that place. If somebody listens to my songs, that's how I make a living. So the least I could do is take 5 seconds out of my day to make their life the best. Like, you make someone's whole year by taking 5 seconds,
sure.
right? So I think it is exactly what I wanted it to be in that sense, and I love that. But there's certain things about the job I didn't know I was signing up for, like you miss funerals and birthdays and weddings and births all together,
Sure.
And so that's tough. It's like missing out a lot of time with your family, but knowing I'm coming home to somebody and somebody's proud is worth that, every day. So.
Sounds great. What is one of the best things that maybe just somebody came up to you and said to you about your music?
Man, I get this all the time in our meet and greets too, and it's someone getting through a loss of a significant other. I just had this guy the other day at a meet and greet. He came up and he gave me the funeral paper of her whole obituary and everything was in it, and he had just got married to her like the year before that, and they got married to dance for my song Still the Ones, had Simple Things in their wedding, and they used them also in her funeral, and he came and gave me the pamphlet, and it was like she was meant to come with me because we just got married to your stuff last year, and she passed away from leukemia, and he's like, your music also like reminds me of her, and it feels like when I listen to it I still have her, and it's like it's this kind of things like that where you're like it gets me all already choked up just thinking about that kind of stuff. You get like to really help someone through a time and feel like they're close to that person, and you don't know that you're doing that kind of work. You don't know that you're helping people like that. So
it's the magic of music. It's a very interesting.
It is. It's getting me all worked up talking about it. But I'll never get tired of hearing that, man. And that was so much of what we don't get to see during the pandemic. When you didn't get to meet people or see anyone. We just looked at numbers on a YouTube,
sure,
if it didn't hit 1 million, then we suck, and you don't realize that even 20,000 people clicking a button is like still changing somebody's life, and
sure.
It's not about them numbers every time,
Let's jump into the album then, because you mentioned kind of the last 2 years, and obviously it was difficult for many people, but for you it almost seems like a good time to write. So what was your mindset as you were kind of sitting at home and kind of having this time on your hands?
Keeping busy, man. I like just avoiding all problems and just running away from them through work. Tequila and work. That's it, baby. You know what I mean? So, but I was very grateful for the time. Like I said, I think I was one of the fortunate people to be able to have my crew with me that has been in my bands for 10 plus 15 years, So when the pandemic and stuff happened, it was perfect time to write, but it was also, I still had a crew with me at all times. We was able to, stick close knit together, and it didn't feel like my life really stopped,
This is the Elephants, right?
Yeah, and they still play with me today, man. They're just going by Freak Freely now.
Okay. But yeah, when you started thinking about releasing a debut record, because you released a couple EPs, you had some great success with doing covers and singles by yourself. When you started thinking about what the first kind of body of work would be, the first kind of coherent piece of music that you would bring out in an album, where did your thoughts go, and what was kind of the starting point as well?
It's quite strange because we've just been writing and writing and writing like senselessly for 4 years now, right? And I mean, I'm probably somewhere at a hard drive of 400 or 500 songs. It's just, we just go for it, And I think when it came down to, I have ideas when I know something special, like I'll save it to the side, and so when we started trying to put together a cohesive body of work, it really was really about like diving into listening to putting myself through a demo jail forever and trying to find like songs that would cohesively go, but I find that I kind of still write around the same thing all the time, I'm circling the same feelings and emotions, so no matter what body of work I put together, I feel like it comes true to me. But it wasn't until like 2 weeks before we needed the album was it like, we got to just go through these songs and put something together, yeah, and so, but while I was doing that, I was finding a story really come together and a chronological order really happened, and it was like art just made itself, it just imitates life in a way.
Yeah, I was going to say there is a chronology to it, because you see all the ups and downs in a relationship that you
totally.
go through. But you mentioned kind of this is the theme that you kind of come back to a lot of the times. Why is that? Do you know why that is?
I think the only thing important to me in my life is either making love or crying about losing it. You know, that's all there is to it. It's like I just this love and my ups and downs with my beliefs in it at all. You know, is we're the human experience in its entirety. You know, that's all it is love. It's all there is. That's the only thing I think matters to me. So that's why my songs will always be love songs. That's the only thing important.
But it's very interesting that you do walk that line between all the darkness of love and all the difficult things that are involved with being trying to find love.
That's what most of love is, ain't it? It takes a lot of patience. So.
So let's jump into a couple of songs, because like I said, there is that chronology, because you start with Some Things I'll Never Know and Lose Control, but then you have The Door, and The Door is one of those, for me, those songs where you kind of get over it and kind of, I can show you the door, I'm kind of getting through it. What was your mindset when you wrote that? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. So a lot of these songs too were written in a camp together, and very fortunate to, Schweez and Julian Bunetta, John Ryan, Mickey Echo, my great dear friend Marcus Lowe, man. I had such a good crew around me. My best friend Jesse, who was in Elephants, has played with me my whole life. He comes everywhere with me, and that song in particular was one of those songs where, especially coming from Lose Control, where it was kind of about, I was in a relationship for a long time, and where Lose Control kind of spins from is that this relationship had become very toxic, because our entire relationship kind of turned into getting fucked up together, where we were drinking, we were doing cocaine, our whole life was just on a high, and every come down was just tragic, and so it came to our point where our life turned into that, and it turned very, very toxic. And I feel like The Door was, for me, as a breaking point, where when you're in a place of a toxic relationship and you're in a place where you don't know how you can get out, and there's no end in sight, and you don't know how you can break out, and you're at a spot where you fought for something for so long that letting it go now even seems stupid. You might as well keep fighting, and you just don't know where there's an end. And eventually you hit that breaking point where it's going to kill you, or you've got to let it go. Right. And so I think The Door for me was that and I had that in my relationship, where it was just that cut-off moment where I have to save my life here. I'm going to die, and I can't die with you. I'm not going to die with you,
No, that's the line I wrote down. Tonight I saved my life when I showed you the door.
Yeah.
So
it's totally that.
This is just some philosophical question, but I'm very interested in it. Why do you think people pursue those toxic relationships?
Man, I don't know. You let me know when you figure it out, because I still do. I think it's trauma somewhere. It's deep down trauma. It's what you feel like you're worth, and you feel like you're not worth love or something. Or I can't tell you why I named my album. I tried everything but therapy, because of being terrified of the idea of therapy, because I feel like it would be good for everyone, especially me. But there's questions like that I don't really know if I want the answers to yet. You know what I mean? So I kind of like my coping mechanism. So I think I'm just going to continue to choose that for a little bit longer, and then put it off as long as I can. But as far as choosing toxic, I don't know. It's a pattern that you just stay stuck in, and maybe if I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be doing it.
Fair enough, but there are, I would say, other forms of therapy, and I think songwriting and performing for people is one as well, and it can be very meditative, very cathartic. So, can you, for somebody who isn't a musician, who isn't playing football, what is that feeling? We kind of talked about the effect you can have on people with your music, but what is that feeling to be in front of people and to kind of share those things?
It is the only place in my life that I am not riddled with anxiety and nervousness. It's my one place where I feel like it's my living room right here, you know, at home. I feel at home and at peace there, and I feel I'm understood, and it's a safe space, and I get to create that safe space for people to all come in and join together, and you see people that don't know each other loving on each other and all connected through one thing that is my child emotions, you know what I mean? Like I'm just emotional toddler up there babbling on and making fart jokes, and people are there to witness and love me for that. And I think there's just nothing in the world like I don't care if there's 3 people or 3 million. It's like the best feeling in the world is that somebody would give a shit about what I have to say.
Well, because that's always when you start out, right? There's always that doubt in your mind, like, will people give a shit?
Every time, always, yeah.
And then you've played them, and I read somewhere in a different interview you said that kind of, I played in many bands where people didn't give a shit, and now since you did the YouTube thing, people started caring. So did that add a bit of pressure, and even where you are now?
Oh yes, but dude, I think it's so weird to me because I felt like when nobody gave a shit, I was so certain that I was like the best. I was so certain that I was born for this when no one gave a shit. But then as soon as people started giving a shit, I got so much more nervous about it and so more scared and so more like, you would think that would give you the purpose and the drive to like be like, okay, I have reassurance, I'm good now. But I think the more reassurance I get, the more scared I become. You know, it's kind of a weird catch-22 in a sense. You know, like I'm just very self-critical about the things that I want people to know about. Okay, here's the way I'll put it. Like you can't control why people love you, and that really bothers me sometimes. You know, because sometimes I'll see something going well, maybe a cover doing great, but not my son doing, or whatever it is, or somebody loving this version of me, but it's not what I want them to love me for. And instead of just being appreciative and being like, they love me at all, be grateful, I'm like, oh, you love that song? Fuck you don't know me at all, you know? And it's so silly that I would have that kind of ego, like that mentality to someone that loves me, you know? And so it's a lot of retraining my brain to relearning, unlearning certain things, and learning to like, that I can be special to somebody, and there's a version of me that I see, and there's a version of me that you see and everyone else has, you know, and there's billions of versions of me that people make who I am to them. Right. And I should be okay with that. I'm not like trying to control the narrative all the time, because I can't.
It's impossible.
I can't make sure people while I'm on stage don't post weird angles of me where I'm like fat and ugly. I'm like, fuck it. I just got to let go of like trying to control this, manipulate this narrative. It's not possible. It's just not.
There's one other song I like to delve into, because you kind of mentioned you're happy in your relationship now. That it's none of my business, but that's what you just now said. But there's a song on the album, and it's probably my favorite. Where is it? You Still Get to Me, which I find.
Yeah, you like that one.
Yeah, because it's such a universal feeling. There's always kind of, and it doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship, but there's this person that you sometimes think about, or that still has a place in your heart, even though you haven't spoken for years, maybe. So it's very relatable, at least for me it was. So what was the origins of that song?
So I had an ex-girlfriend, and it was Paige, and we used to. She's got a kid now, and still blocked on everything. So I hope she's doing good. But so there was this song by a dear friend of mine named Mac Ayers, and the song's called Roses. And so we would always, when there was, you know, whether we were at a party or there was a group of people, one of us could get on the DJ and play that song Roses, and we would know that song was on to find each other. And it was like the world would stop when we listened to that song. And the thing is now when I hear that song, and it was a song I loved, it's a song that will always bring me back to that moment. Like you can almost physically like smell perfume or something when you hear it, right? And so it's just kind of based off the feeling that like there's songs I love that I can't listen to anymore, you know. And that was my song that I showed to her. So I was like mine way before hers, and then now it's our song, and it's like I can't hear it. Even tell you I hear it come on, I'm like, guys, you got to just turn that off. I don't want to hear that. Like because there's just a piece of it is and we kind of also utilize in that song, Still the One by Shania. We kind of made that song for that purpose. So it says, you're not still the one, but you still get to me, because Still the One was it did a lot for me in my career and growing up on YouTube. So, but yeah, that song in its entirety is that one song, or that going back to my hometown and that seeing that one spot, or seeing this restaurant, it was just like, I can't even eat at anymore.
The memory flooding.
Yeah, it just keeps you back in that place, and so got to get out. Just had to leave my hometown altogether.
What's it like when you sing some of these songs? Then does it bring you back?
Yeah, it does a lot, man. There's a song in particular, Some Things I'll Never Know, that starts the record, and I still have yet to be able to sing that without crying. It was the first song I ever recorded where I sobbed recording it, and it was just like, it's just still, it's like a weird manipulative, like mind fuck that you got to like go back and really capture that feeling. It's I always say singing is a lot more acting than it is singing. It's at least to me. I think I'm always trying to get back to that spot and be in that moment and that feeling. And even though I'm past that feeling, it's kind of tough to dive back into that and go back to a place where you haven't. I don't think you ever can fully get closure on anything if you want to do this life.
No, but I agree that if you want to transfer the emotion honestly, then you need to tap into where that came from.
You got to make sure you just never get closure on anything, which is why avoiding therapy is so important.
One last question before I let you go. One thing I really like about the album is a lot of modern music. To me, at least, it feels a little bit overproduced, and then things become a bit muddied. But with your album, there is some more quiet moments, and you can really hear your voice. Was that a deliberate effort to kind of put your?
Now, see, as far as production goes, that's I'm so fortunate that there's John Ryan, Julian Bunetta, man, Ammo. Stu Crichton. I'm just grateful to be surrounded by guys that are, not only write these songs with me, but know how to. Again, Julian Bunetta has been my father through the last 4 years on this music, and it's always, he's been a part of everything, and he's produced and taught me how to. We'll have drag out battles about 1 BPM differences, and I didn't know 1 BPM is that much different. And then sure enough, by the time the song comes out, it'll be split in half, like 1.5 faster. And he knows feeling. His feeling is just like, his gut is just the best. So I'm grateful to have just people with good guts, and we're following our gut no matter what.
Sounds good, man. Thank you so much for
taking the time
to talk with me.
Yeah, bro.